With this is Congressman Adam Smith from Washington, Democrat, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. Steve Witkoff on his way to Moscow. He might meet with Vladimir Putin. What do you think he's bringing with him, and how much faith do you have in his negotiating?
I don't have a lot of faith. I think what he's bringing with him is the message to Vladimir Putin that the sweetheart deal that he was trying to give him just isn't going to work. There was sufficient pushback in the U.S. and a variety of different places, certainly from Europe and Ukraine, that deal is going to have to fundamentally change. Whether or not Russia will be open to that, it's hard to say, because remember what Putin wants. He wants control of all of Ukraine. It does not look like he's going to be able to achieve that. But does he know that yet? And is he willing to cut a deal short of that? The keys on our side. Ukraine has to be able to defend itself going forward. There have to be significant security guarantees, and Ukraine certainly can't be giving territory to Russia that Russia hasn't even taken yet. So I think there's a long way to go to actually get to a peace agreement.
We'll see what happens in the next few days. I wanted to ask you, Congressman, you are the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, which may be doing an investigation now into what happened in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela, the reports of this strike and the second strike on survivors in the water there. If you do have an investigation, what specific questions do you have?
Yeah, well, first of all, if it played out the way was described in the Washington Post article, it's clearly illegal. Even if there is a war, and look, a huge part of the problem is the Trump administration has never adequately explained the legal justification for what they're doing in blowing up these boats down in Latin America. They haven't presented that case, and they're sort of in a middle ground. If there is not a declared conflict, then we're in basic law enforcement mode, and you can't go blowing these things up in the first place. No probable cause, no due process, clear violation of the law. If they want to claim there is an armed conflict, but there are rules for armed conflict, which the United States of America typically follows, and one of them is you can't effectively just kill survivors who are no longer a threat to you. So either way, this is illegal. If it played out the way it did. So number one, what happened? And we have not seen a specific denial from anyone in the White House or the Pentagon. There's been all kinds of, oh, it's fake news, it's blah, blah, blah. But it's a very simple question. You hit the boat once. Was it hit a second time with two survivors on the boat? So that's a big part of it. But the whole operation is in question. As I said, there's questionable legality on the original boat strikes in the first place. And then what are we really doing down there? It's supposedly about drugs, but you've got Donald Trump pardoning the convicted drug dealer who's the former president of Honduras. So if we're concerned about this, why are you doing that? So we have a lot of questions that the Pentagon and the White House, they simply haven't provided to Congress, which is why you're seeing bipartisan pushback on what's going on.
Do you know whether there is video of the entire incident that will prove definitively whether there was a second strike?
I do not. And look, the lack of transparency from this Pentagon has been a major problem. I think it's one of the biggest things that's chafed at the Republicans. They're in the majority in the House and the Senate. They can't get access to basic information like that. So I think you're going to see a renewed push in light of this incident and a whole lot of other things. And also, the president obviously is weakening. So there's vulnerability. So I think Republicans are really going to start to push and say, hey, give us answers here.
Let me ask, just to be very clear about this, if there was a second strike on survivors, you say that by definition is illegal. An illegal act by whom then?
Well, it depends on who gave the order. I mean, and I don't want to prejudge this because this is very serious stuff and we have to know exactly what the facts are. But if Secretary Hegseth gave an order to kill survivors who were no longer a threat, that's a crime. And anyone who carried out that order, who did that, also committed a crime, which is the whole point of what Senator Kelly and the other 5 members of Congress said. And it's in the UCMJ. It's not something that, Mark Kelly's making up. You are not supposed to follow orders that are clearly illegal. And this Pentagon has put our service members in an incredibly vulnerable position with just an utter contempt for the law. Secretary Hegseth has always felt the judge advocate generals, the lawyers who tell you what's legal if you're in the services, he's had nothing but contempt for them, as if the law doesn't apply to him. That places the people that he is in charge of, our service members, in an incredibly vulnerable position if their superior doesn't feel like following the law.
Again, the reporting, to be clear, it's not clear whether Hegseth gave. The reporting isn't that he gave a separate order,
Absolutely.
as far as we knew, after the first strike to kill the survivors. But if the initial order was kill everyone, is that enough to raise questions about illegality?
It would depend on the circumstances. I can't. It certainly raises the question, and is something that needs to be investigated. That type of order is typically not given and not justified, as far as I know. If that order came out, that would be a huge problem. And again, we got to get the actual facts, and this is where the Pentagon is, part of the problem. They're not giving us the actual details and the facts around this.
Congressman Adam Smith from Washington, as I said, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. A lot of questions before your committee over this incident, so thank you very much for being with us this morning. Kate?